He hadn't expected to come home and find a stranger living in his mansion. After months of being away on a work assignment, Marcus Reynolds was ready to step back into the life he had built with his own hard work and sacrifice. A life marked by perseverance, late nights, and a dream that many said was out of reach for someone like him. But nothing in his journey had prepared him for the shock and deep sense of violation that awaited him that afternoon. Pulling up the long driveway, Marcus noticed the unfamiliar car parked beside his house. A woman was sitting on the front porch, sipping a drink as if she had every right to be there. As he stepped closer, the knot in his stomach tightened. This wasn't just any visitor, she had moved in. Boxes were stacked near the door, curtains hung from windows in odd patterns, and the garden bore signs of recent activity. Marcus's home, his sanctuary, had been taken over. Before he could gather his thoughts, a neighbor from across the street approached, eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and something else. Was it suspicion? The neighbor whispered, "I saw her moving in 2 weeks ago." The HOA said she had permission. But Marcus knew better. Permission didn't come from a neighborhood association for someone to claim a house that wasn't theirs. He pulled out his phone and called the homeowners association, determined to find out what was going on. What happened next felt surreal. The voice on the other end of the line was evasive, brushing off his concerns with vague statements about rental agreements and temporary occupancy. Marcus insisted, explaining that this was his property, legally purchased and fully paid for. Yet, the association seemed reluctant to act, caught between bureaucratic loopholes and uncomfortable truths. Deciding to reclaim his home, Marcus approached the woman on the porch, calm but firm. "Ma'am, this is my house. I'm here to take it back." Her eyes narrowed, lips curling into a smirk that spoke volumes. "You're not supposed to be here," she said coldly, as if the truth itself could be rewritten by tone alone. At that moment, Marcus felt the familiar sting of something he had hoped to leave behind, the heavy burden of being a black man in spaces that still felt hostile. This was not just trespassing, it was a collision of entitlement and racial prejudice wrapped in the thin veil of suburban civility. Feeling threatened, the woman reached for her phone and dialed the police, fabricating a story of an intruder on the property. When the officers arrived, Marcus stood his ground, showing proof of ownership, deeds in hand, and recounting the entire ordeal. Yet the initial reaction from law enforcement was hesitant, tinged with the same disbelief and suspicion that so many Black Americans know all too well. "Sir, we just need to verify some details," one officer said, eyes scanning the grand house and the woman who still clung to the porch as if it was hers. For a moment, Marcus wondered if justice would find him today, or if he would be cast once again as the suspect in his own story. But as the facts were laid bare, the officers began to grasp the truth. This was no simple trespasser scenario, it was a blatant act of violation, an egregious overstep by someone abusing the system and the prejudices it sometimes harbors. The woman was asked to leave immediately, but the damage had already been done. Marcus's sense of security had been shattered, replaced with a sobering reminder of the invisible battles that accompany success in a world still grappling with race and ownership. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus sat on the steps of his reclaimed home, reflecting on the ordeal. It wasn't just about a house. It was about dignity, respect, and the ongoing fight to assert one's rightful place in society. He knew that many would see his story as an isolated incident, a peculiar clash between neighbors. But for him and for countless others, it was a painful emblem of a broader reality, one where Black achievement is too often questioned, undermined, or outright stolen. Yet, despite the exhaustion and anger, Marcus's spirit remained unbroken. This experience had ignited a fire within him, a determination to expose injustice, to educate, and to demand accountability. It was a moment that would not define him but would fuel the narrative of resilience and rightful belonging that he carried forward. In telling this story on Justice in Color, Marcus hoped to shed light on the subtle yet destructive ways racism and entitlement still manifest in everyday life, even in places that promise safety and community. Because true justice isn't just about reclaiming a mansion. It's about reclaiming the humanity and respect owed to every person, regardless of the color of their skin. In the days that followed, Marcus found himself navigating not only the logistics of securing his home but also the emotional aftermath of the encounter. The woman who had lived in his house for 2 weeks, brazenly and without permission, had vanished like a shadow when confronted with the truth. Yet her actions echoed louder than her disappearance. They spoke to a society still wrestling with deep-rooted biases that questioned the legitimacy of Black ownership and success. Marcus began to document everything, from police reports to conversations with the homeowners association and neighbors. Each record was a testament, not just of his right to the property, but of his refusal to be silenced or erased. He reached out to community leaders and civil rights organizations, knowing this was a story that needed to be told beyond the walls of his mansion. This wasn't just about property rights anymore. It was about justice, respect, and the dignity that all Black individuals deserve but too often have to fight for twice as hard. Marcus understood that his experience was a painful reflection of a wider pattern: Black families being questioned about their place in neighborhoods, Black success being met with suspicion or outright hostility. The media soon picked up the story. Headlines varied. Some framed it as a bizarre real estate dispute, others as a glaring example of racial discrimination masked by suburban politeness. Marcus chose to speak openly and honestly, emphasizing the emotional toll and the broader implications. "This isn't an isolated incident," he told a local news outlet. "It's a reminder that the color of our skin still shapes how we are seen and treated, even in spaces we've rightfully earned." What struck many was Marcus's unwavering composure and pride. He refused to be portrayed as a victim, instead standing tall as a man asserting his rights and demanding accountability. His story resonated deeply, inspiring conversations about inclusion, equity, and the insidious ways racism continues to undermine Black dignity in everyday life. As the HOA faced public scrutiny, changes began to unfold. The association launched an internal investigation, promising reforms to prevent similar incidents. Neighbors, some initially indifferent or complicit, reached out with apologies and support. It was a small victory, but an important one, a reminder that change starts when uncomfortable truths are confronted head-on. Through it all, Marcus remained committed to his larger mission: to amplify stories of Black resilience and justice through his platform, Justice in Color. His home, once violated, had become a symbol of strength and renewal, a beacon for those fighting against injustice in their own lives. In sharing his story, Marcus also called on viewers to stay vigilant and proactive. To know their rights, to support one another, and to speak out against injustice whenever and wherever it occurs. Because true justice is not passive, it requires courage, community, and relentless pursuit. This experience, painful as it was, deepened Marcus's belief in the power of dignity and the unyielding strength of the Black spirit. His mansion was more than bricks and mortar. It was a testament to dreams realized despite adversity. And now, with his story told and his home reclaimed, Marcus was ready to continue that journey, not just for himself, but for every voice that too often goes unheard. In the face of entitlement, prejudice, and injustice, Marcus Reynolds chose resilience. And through Justice in Color, his story stands as a powerful reminder: no one can take away what you have rightfully earned, and no injustice can dim the light of a soul determined to shine.